Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. The three main topics that we focus on are food security, self-reliance, and emergency preparedness. And today's video is all about food security and even emergency preparedness. If we are working on building up our food storage, we should have all of the ingredients that we're going to be using in this bread today. This is a recipe that would work really well. If the grid were down, we had everything set up that we can do off-grid cooking. If we were without the ability to go to grocery stores anymore. This is honey wheat sourdough bread. So using sourdough means that if we're out of yeast, this still works. If we have wheat that we can grind, and if we have bread flour stored, we're in business. If we have oil, salt, as well as a sweetener of some kind. This recipe is very much related to the recent class that we did called Simple Sourdough. These are all 10 of our classes. They are free classes. You can find the playlist on our channel and you can just click on any one of those. Each one goes for about an hour or a little bit less, and each one has a handout that you can download and print. The recipe for this version is going to be right below the description of this video. In our sourdough class, we talked about how there are just 4 basic ingredients to really fantastic sourdough bread: water, flour, salt, and yeast. Now today, we're going to be adding 2 additional ingredients. We're going to be adding a sweetener and a fat to our bread. We will be using the very same methodology that was taught in that sourdough class, and also the methodology that I have used in many other videos as well. Here we go. This one is unique. This recipe is unique in that the start that we are going to use is just the exact amount. I don't have to take some off the top and then feed the rest and discard any. I made it exactly to the amount that is needed for this recipe. Now, how I did that was yesterday morning, I took my starter out of the refrigerator and fed it. And then last night, before I went to bed, it was ready to go back into the refrigerator. But before I put it back in the fridge, I took off about 1 tablespoon. I took off 20 grams. And that is all. This happened from 20 grams of starter. That's the same as, that is the same mass as about 20 raisins, about a tablespoon. So it's not much at all. And look what happened overnight. I added 50 grams of water, 50 grams of flour. So this is a 100% hydration, for those of you that know what that means. And we're going to use all of this in our bread today. Also notice that we have the bowl on the scale. So here is the start going in. All right, now I'm going to turn the scale on. We did not need to weigh that. So the scale is now zeroed out, and we need to add to that 325 grams of water, which is about 1 1/3 cups. So 325. Now what we are going to do is mix these two together, because we want the starter to be evenly distributed throughout the recipe. The easiest way to do that is to mix it with the water first up. Now to that, we're going to add our other liquid ingredients. So I'm going to be putting in 2 tablespoons of oil, and this happens to be avocado oil. And 2 tablespoons of honey. This honey was a gift to us from someone who attended one of our bread classes over here. It's very strong honey, so it will give a lovely taste to this bread. Now, I measured the oil first so that the honey would fall out beautifully out of this spoon. And you can see how clean that spoon is because it was coated with oil before we started. And now I'm just going to give it another whisk. We want that honey distributed throughout as well. About a teaspoon, teaspoon and a quarter maybe, salt. All right, I just zeroed out the scale because we are now ready to put the flour in. We are going to do 125 grams of whole wheat flour, and I just ground this morning. And this is the wheat that I used. This is hard white winter wheat, and I love this for making bread. It's almost like using white flour. So 125 grams, which is about a cup plus a tablespoon. Okay, we're going to be using bread flour, and we need 375 grams, which is about 3 cups and 2 tablespoons. So I'm zeroing in this again. All right, we're now ready for the scale to go away. I took a second and cleared the deck here so we can just focus on the bread. You can do this in your stand mixer if you wish, but it is so easy that I don't ever even bother doing that. Now what I'm going to do is to stir this together, and I prefer using a wooden spoon and a bowl just until it gets to the shaggy dough stage. The shaggy dough stage is when it has picked up all the flour, but it still looks pretty shaggy. All right, it's there. So it's picked up pretty much all the flour. All right, now it still needs some mixing together. So I'm done with my wooden spoon. And now, with clean, dry hands, I'm going to do what is called the caterpillar. This is a mixing strategy where you pinch the dough and make it look like it has segments like a caterpillar. So this is how it goes. So I'm just going to pinch the dough like that, and you can see how the caterpillar is forming. And then I'm going to fold it over and pinch it again. And notice how it's mixing beautifully. We'll do this about 3, this is 3rd, and I think I'm about done. Yep. Okay, now, there we go, and we're just going to let that sit for 1 hour. During this time, the water is going to be absorbing all of the flour. It will help strengthen the dough and get it ready for what comes next. The next step is what we do in place of a formal kneading. It is further steps with the bread that help strengthen the bread and develop the gluten. Because we're working with sourdough, and because the starter is highly acidic, it is going to be breaking down the gluten. So we want to develop the gluten really well right now while we can, so that we still can get a good rise in the bread before some of the gluten is gone. Now, in order to do this step, it is a standard stretch and fold, and I have done this many times in videos, including in the sourdough video. But if you've never seen it before, basically what we do is, as you have your bowl in front of you, you can pick out the 4 cardinal directions. Just consider this north, south, east, west. And with one wet hand, we're going to come under, here's north, we're going to come under the dough, pull it, stretch it, and fold it over. Stretch and fold. Then we're going to turn to the east and do the same thing, and the south, and the same thing, and west, and the same thing. And then we're going to flop it over, cover it, let it rest for 15 minutes. I have my marker that tells me that I have done the first stretch and fold. And now we're going to do that 3 more times for a total of 4 stretch and folds with 15 minutes in between. So I'm not going to bring you back for number 2 and number 3, but I will bring you back when we are doing the last one. Well, here we are on our 4th stretch and fold. Wet hand. Now, I'm sure that as you did this, you noticed that the dough got smoother and it also got tougher to pull. So it is gaining strength, which is exactly what we want. And that is why that you can use this in place of a standard knead. Okay, now we're going to remove it from this bowl and put it in this Cambro container that I always use for my bulk fermentation of bread. So I'm mashing it down. And notice that I have a rubber band at about the level of the bread. This, because it is sourdough, is going to take several hours to do the bulk fermentation. This is where it gains some of the tang that we like in sourdough bread. And it is just not as fast as regular yeast bread. So we're going to give it some time. It probably will take 3 or 4 hours, maybe even more. So when it is ready, we're going to let it rise until not quite double. And then we're going to come back and shape it into a regular loaf, not a round boule that we did in the sourdough class. This is going to be like sandwich bread. So we will see you when we get to that point. Here we are 4.5 hours later, and check out our bread. Just about double, so we're ready to go to the next step. So the next step is to shape the dough, and we're going to do just a regular loaf. This is very soft dough. And it's very, very airy, which is great. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on it, but this is going to be great. I wasn't sure, I couldn't remember if we used a 4x8 or a 5x9 pan. I think I'll know by the time I get it shaped. So I got both of them ready just in case. I think it's going to be a 5x9. And we want to degas it. Degassing it will stimulate the yeast cells to start growing again. Okay, so I'm just going to roll it quite tightly, and as I go, I'm going to be pulling it a little bit to put some tension across the top. Most definitely a 5x9. I'm going to tuck in the ends. And just like we did in the other container, I'm going to mash it down to where it gets in the corners. Okay, there we have it. So that probably is going to take another 3 hours or so. We'd like for it to get up above the rim of the pan, so we'll see what happens. And we will come back when we're ready to put it in the oven. Here we are, 3.5 hours, and it is probably as tall as it's going to get. It is about an inch above the rim of the pan, so we're okay. The oven has preheated to 400 degrees, so we're going to put this in right now, and we'll bring you back when we are ready to take it out. I'm shooting this on my iPhone. Jim is outside taking delivery of a new thing. So he's going to be a few minutes, and the bread is just out. So I wanted to show you what it looks like. It is just absolutely gorgeous. So it's going to be wonderful. We're going to let it cool here for just a few minutes, and then we will come back and open it up, take a slice, and see what it looks like on the inside and also what it tastes like. We have let this cool for over an hour because we had dinner. This has been a 9-hour day getting this from start to finish, so not too bad with sourdough. It's not very warm anymore, so it should cut just fine. So here's the crumb. It doesn't quite look like the same crumb that is present when we do a boule type shaping, but this is meant more for a sandwich bread. So I'm just going to cut a little piece right here to see how it does. Okay, so the crumb is beautiful. Looks like just some regular bread. So let's have a little taste and see how much sourdough tang there is. It's really delicious bread, very, very flavorful. The sourdough doesn't hit until almost an afterbite, after you've had it in your mouth for a minute or two, and it is very, very mild. And I made my tangiest sourdough in the sourdough class with this very same starter. So I was hoping we'd have a more tangy result, but it's made just a little bit different than the other one is, than the other style is, so maybe that was it. But it is delicious, and we are going to enjoy it very much. So thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you very soon for more videos.